What's up, everybody? A playoff edition of NLL Weekly. Chris Schmidbauer, Dan Naraki, joining you live on YouTube for the NLL Weekly podcast. Of course, you can catch us wherever you get your podcasts as well as here on YouTube each and every Wednesday about 7 o'clock. We have a very special show tonight. We have 7 of the 8 Northern Lakes League football coaches who have qualified for the playoffs joining us tonight. We're going to do rapid fire. We're going to hear from all of them. We're going to get their thoughts on the end of the season because some of them we haven't talked to since week 2. Some of them we talked to just a week ago, but we have not talked to some of these folks in a while. So we're going to get their thoughts on the end of the season. We're going to talk to them about how they feel going into the playoffs. And then, of course, what they're looking to and what they plan on doing come Friday night. And of course, you can get this podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Spreaker, and Podcast Addict, as well as Apple Podcasts. So make sure all of those places are where you subscribe. You can subscribe and like us on YouTube as well. So all of those things really important. It'll really help the channel out. It'll help us out as well to continue to bring this. As I said to you a couple weeks ago, the plan is to go into basketball season. We're talking about doing one more show for the football season next week. Not 100% sure how we're going to structure that, but we're definitely got some plans in the works. So we'll have to let you know as time goes on what we're going to try and do. And then, of course, we'll probably take a few weeks off as some of our local teams start to dwindle out of the playoffs. And then at that point, we'll go ahead and start basketball season, and we'll keep you up to date on all those different things. But as I said at the outset, unbelievable that we're already into the playoffs. Doesn't feel like it, Dan. The weather outside keeps telling us it's summertime right now, or at least early fall with the way things are going. However, Friday is supposed to feel like a football Friday.
I was just going to say, make that comment because as soon as I came home, I checked the thermometer out back and it was 80 fun-loving degrees back there.
Yeah.
And it's the day before Halloween. And yeah, I'm expecting some fun on the sideline because it should drop into the 50s by the time we kick off Friday night. So, but at the same time, I love football weather. That's just me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would take it. I would probably prefer to play in the 50s. Maybe that's me. I don't know. Probably different guys would have different takes on it, but I feel like I'd prefer to play in the 50s just because I know that I'm not necessarily having players that feel like they're tired or winded, cramping. I know you can still cramp up and all that stuff. I've heard so many coaches over the last couple of weeks say, well, that's why you need to keep drinking water all the way throughout and all that stuff. But I'm really curious to see the way that people react moving forward, because I do believe that when you look at the overall situation, gosh, I just rather play on a night when I know that guys are not going to literally be sweating and losing a ton of fluids at that point. But that's just me. I think I'd be more excited about that football weather on Friday than playing in the 80s.
I think I'm with you because if I go back to my cross country days in the NLL, that was the ideal. Like the temperatures right here are the ideal weather, those 50s to run in. Once you get warmed up, you don't feel the chill, but you also don't feel heat oppressing you and kind of zapping, as you mentioned, zapping the strength that you do when we start in the middle of August and it's hot and it's humid and you're trying to force hydration here. I think it's a bit easier also to get warm and stay warm for some reason, but that's just me.
So I'll give you the schedule, or at least the planned schedule as of right now. So we should have Chad Long from Fremont Ross here in a few moments. We'll have Sean Kiss from Bowling Green in a little bit, followed by Stephen Adams. Then we'll get into Dirk Connor near the top of the next hour, and then John Gallius, Andy Brungarden will finish things off with Ken Winters and kind of talk with all of those guys about their upcoming playoff matchups. Some really interesting ones on the horizon. I'm really excited about where everything is going to go this weekend. And do we have any potential upsets? Do we have anything where we could say, well, this may not go the way we think it will, or if one of our teams that are one of those lower seeds will come up out of nowhere and win a game? Some really tough matchups. I know when we talk with Chad here in a few moments that Fremont Ross has got to go on the road to Medina Highland, who's undefeated on the season. They're the 2 seed. Fremont Ross is the 15 seed. It's not going to be very simple for them to do that, but I just look at the overall complexities of this, and I'm really excited to see how our teams fare in this first round from the Northern Lakes League, because to get 8 of 11 teams in is pretty impressive to begin with. but then also to see if you can get more than, say you get 6 into round 2. That's a big win and tells you how tough this league is.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, I think that's going to be something I'm looking forward to hear about the mindset of those teams that have to go on the road, to not only how they accommodate the travel, because of, especially with the top couple of divisions, and how those top couple of divisions have seemingly expanded geographically over the last several years. So those road trips could be a lot longer than they're used to, and what that home field advantage or disadvantage actually plays when it comes to game planning, when it comes to, how you're running that offense on unfamiliar ground, so to speak.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really excited to see how everything works out. This is going to be fun, and we're going to see how exactly everything will play out here over the next couple of days, because it's really going to be quite interesting to see just overall how good everyone can approach things, how well everyone is able to assimilate to the differences. You have to travel a little bit more this week. By the way, Chad just emailed me. He's working on getting in, so I just emailed him the link again. So we will stand by. But you wonder where exactly things will be with that travel, that extra long travel that most of these teams have not had. It's why we've talked about it being so important to get that home playoff game, at least in round 1 and ideally into round 2, because you can have 2 weeks where you basically are unscathed from having to leave the friendly confines of your stadium. And it's not to say that you can't go on the road and win, not to say that you can't win a big game. I know that there are some of those 7-10 matchups. Whitmer had that a year ago. Granted, Perrysburg isn't exactly a long travel, but you could have situations that play out where you've got teams that do have to go 2 to 2.5 hours away on a bus, get off of that, play at 7 o'clock, and you'll get used to that if you make a deep run in the playoffs. But if you haven't done it before, it's why some coaches in the past that I've seen have done it where they purposely schedule one of those travels in, where they will make it so that you have to do one of those big long travels, and have it where you have to get on a bus, practice what that's like, because you never know when that's going to come in handy. And I know people sit there and think that some high school football coaches or college coaches or pro coaches might be a little bit anal retentive about planning and all these different things that go into being a coach. But I look at it and say, I'd rather have my team know what that's like, versus just assuming that they're just going to get it right out of the gate.
Well, and there's another aspect to that as well. And after talking to enough coaches on multiple levels, it's very clear that football coaches also seem to be creatures of habit, and there is an order in which they like to do their week, an order in which their team likes to prepare, and having to make that sort of level of travel, have to get sit on a bus for 2.5 hours in the middle of a Friday afternoon, or even take a day out of school and have to make that extended travel, that really throws off that routine. And they'll spend the rest of the week trying to keep everything as close to possible, as if we were just heading down the road 10 minutes, like we have been for the last 9 weeks. So that the travel isn't really what affects them. So it's as much of a maintaining routine as it is to maintain that mental space that you are on game day, and leading up to that.
And there's nothing worse, I think, than coming into that situation and not knowing what that exactly is like, what that whole situation is, because again, I know people don't think it's that big of a deal. It's like we talked about with playing on turf versus playing on grass, and does that make a difference? And people saying, well, no, I don't think it does, or different coaches saying that it's not a big deal, or that it is a big deal. But I genuinely feel like it is a big deal to not having done that travel before. So we will see. But we got to get to our first guest. He joins us via his normal. He normally has another interview going on, so we appreciate him squeezing us in tonight. Chad, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Hey guys, thanks. Sorry. I'm stuck here at Fricker's parking lot doing the interview. I thought we were done with the Frickers thing last week, but I got another one this week. So
no worries.
thank you again for accommodating.
No, of course. And you're a team that I think a lot of people want to talk to right now, because when we talked to you a couple of weeks ago, you were a team that was not on the greatest stretch. You had told us that you weren't really thrilled with the way you guys were playing at that juncture in the season. And after that loss to Whitmer and then the loss to Findlay, you guys go out and win 4 out of your last 5 games. How does it feel to know that this team, I guess maybe what happened in your opinion that changed and how you guys were able to take 4 out of those last 5 games? And to be honest, you were really close to taking 5 out of 5 because you only lost by a touchdown to Clay in that ball game as well.
Yeah. The game against Clay was, we left 14 points out there, from the opening kickoff that they recovered on a sky kick, and then a snap over our quarterback's head that cost us a touchdown. So we left 14 points out there. The kids were kind of devastated a little bit, but nonetheless, they're battling back. And if we're going to catch on fire and be hot, this is the time to do it going into the playoffs. I honestly, the way we're playing now is what I expected we would have had at the beginning of the year. Our offense wasn't clicking like we thought it was going to click, but they found their stride, and Carson Caden's doing an excellent job distributing the ball to many receivers. And our running game, we got 3-4 running backs that we use throughout the game, and we're just executing and playing great football right now.
To be able to get some of those guys who were injured earlier in the year as well, I'm sure, especially because, not that you would ever choose to do it this way, but a lot of tape wasn't able to be seen on some of those guys because they didn't play a whole lot to start the year. But when you look at your group and where they kind of sit right now heading into the playoffs, what's the mindset, especially coming off of a big win last week? I think a lot of people thought you guys had a chance against Bowling Green, but to win in the dominant fashion that you did, that was an impressive win against a really good BG team. So where's the team at mentally right now?
Mentally, we want to prove ourselves. It's not the way we started, it's how we're going to finish. Last week was a shocker to myself, to be honest.
Okay.
Never would I thought we would dominate and beat Bowling Green 49-0 in that fashion, where I believe they had 31 total offensive yards, and they're a really good.
That's incredible.
And, our offense was able to put up 380 yards of total offense and score on every possession. I think our kids are in a good place right now. They don't want the season to end. They wanted to be 5-5 and, be second in the Cardinal division, knowing that we left the game out there. And, our kids are just playing really good team football, and the kids don't care who gets the glory as long as we're winning and dominating.
So you have a really tough opponent on Friday. Medina Highlands, undefeated. They're the 2 seed. Little surprised with your guys' record that you ended up falling to that 15 seed, but you can only control where you end up. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. What have you seen from Medina Highland on tape? What impresses you about them?
Well, we played them first off in the playoffs in 2020. We played them.
Okay.
We lost them 41-21. What we noticed in that game was physicality. And it's the same now, watching that, from experiencing that game to seeing what they do now, it's the same. A lot of physicality. They're tough kids. They're going to smack you in the mouth. So we got to, really be ready for that going in. They're going to try running the ball down our throats. Just a lot of what we've seen the last 3-4 weeks. But they got a very strong offensive line and some good running backs that are, hard to bring down. So it looks like on film. And defensively, man, they're really it's a 4-2-5 defense, but you could tell they're well coached. Coach Gibb, who I know when I coached in the North-South game with, he's a classy guy, intense guy, and a smart guy. And you can tell they're well coached, and we're not going to beat them being lack of coaching ability. So we got to be on our A game. When we get things, we gotta complete it and you do it right.
When I look at this group, for you, meaning your team right now, you guys are probably a little bit more used to this than other teams locally. Dan and I were talking about this before you joined. That 2-hour-ish drive won't be that bad for you guys because you're about halfway there already. But any concerns at all? I mean, I know coaches kind of to throw this off, but certainly remember even back, when I was in high school, coaches kind of purposely scheduling a little bit of a longer trip just to get used to that. Is there any concern about guys getting on a bus and having to get off ready to play on Friday? Again, a little bit shorter because you're halfway to Cleveland already, but still not an
Yeah,
easy trip.
yeah, it's not an easy trip. On a bus, it'd be about 2 hours.
Okay.
We're leaving earlier than what we normally have. We're going to leave at 2:30. The good thing is we have parent-teacher conferences, so our
Okay.
boys won't be in school and having to leave. So we have them getting up. We're doing breakfast in the morning at 10 o'clock, at the stadium for the boys to get them up out of bed, get them moving, walking around, and so forth. And then ready to go. Bus leaves at 2:30. We're going to get there early so we can get off, walk the field, get taped, and eat a little bit and get ready for the game. So I'm not concerned. It's not a big deal.
Before I let you go, because again, I know you got another show to do, but what do you think? What are the keys for Friday? What are you looking at that you guys have to do in order to be successful and pull off what I think people would consider as a big upset?
Yeah, I think it would be a big upset when we come away with a win. Honestly, on the offensive side, we got to take care of the ball. We got to be able to execute, be able to throw down the field. Our offensive staff needs to manipulate the defense that is in front of us because they do a lot of things on defense and rolling coverages and disguising. They're good at it, but we found some weaknesses and so forth. We're going to have to run the ball in order to set up our pass and vice versa, pass or this do the run. But that's offensively. Defensively, in order for us to win, we got to be able to tackle. We got to control the line of scrimmage like we have the last couple of weeks, and we got to be able to tackle the running backs and everything and what they throw at us because they get like 20 different formations and can do a bunch of things. They're a running team, not a passing team, but a running team from everything we saw. And we got to be ready for anything that could possibly happen.
Well, I love that you said when we win, which I think I caught that in there. So I appreciate the confidence there. But best of luck to you. Honestly, you're one of my favorite people to talk to. Thank you for doing this. And I look forward to hopefully texting you after a win on Friday.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Chad.
Yep.
Let's bring in our next guest really quickly. This is going to be rapid fire. We're cycling right through them. And we're going to welcome in the head coach of the Bowling Green Bobcats. That's Sean Kiss. Sean, we haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. Since we did get a chance to talk to you, you guys reeled off some pretty impressive wins. I know you're probably not thrilled with the way last Friday went down the stretch, but overall, if I had told you at the beginning of the year that 6-4 is where you'd be at, I think you'd probably have been pretty happy.
Yeah, we'll take it. We've played pretty well, through the last 4 weeks. Last week was rough. I think they came out and they had a good game plan and they hit us in the mouth and we didn't respond well. So, but I mean, the good side of that is we're going to see a similar team this week. And, I think that they exposed some things that we worked on. And, I think that we're a better team because of it.
I think you said something that a lot of coaches nobody likes to lose. I don't think that's anything anybody would like, but you'd rather see where those glaring things that need to be fixed are now than when you're in the first round of the playoffs or second round of the playoffs when all of a sudden someone kind of exploits something that you guys haven't seen. So the fact that you at least have a week to try and fix some of those deficiencies, you'd rather it be last week than this week, I imagine.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Nobody likes to lose, but, them taking it to us the way we did, it was another good, it kind of felt like coming in on Saturday and after the OHSAA week, taking a deep, long self-reflection and, seeing that, we were I think the kids were kind of feeling ourselves a little bit more than we should have. And I think we got checked ourselves and, we've had a good week of practice and we've been pretty focused and, Defiance is a good team. Everybody we're going to play from here on out, it's going to be a good team. But, I feel confident with what we have.
Guys kind of got a decent draw when you consider where you're going. I was talking with Chad about the fact that they've got to go 2 hours Defiance isn't terribly far for you guys. You should be able to travel fairly well, I would think. Defiance shouldn't be too tough of a drive for you guys from Bowling Green and for the fans as well. Are you excited, even though there's no technical home game, that it should be a pretty well attended and well traveled game for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we had no idea, even going into that week, we had no
Sure.
idea where we were going to be, and we'd be heading, you could be taking the 2+ hour trip over to Copley, or we could be, at our own home turf. So, we're going to get on the bus. We're going to go play football. It's not a big deal to us to have to get on the bus and go travel. But yeah, like you said, it's a bonus to not have to take that 2-hour trip. Cause I know, like Coach Long just said, I just listened to him talk about, all the prep and the plan that goes along with that. Like, we just got to get on the bus and go play. So there's not a lot of other things to worry about. Just drop it up and playing football.
Well, the nice thing is this is a Defiance team that's at least played a like opponent in Napoleon. I know that's beginning of the year versus now, but having seen Napoleon, the way that they attack them, it probably gives you at least a little bit of an understanding of what you guys did well against Napoleon, what they did well against Defiance. Since you guys run similar styles offensively, it might give you a few keys as to maybe how to attack Defiance on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, and like the other kind of crazy thing in crossovers that we've had is they scrimmaged Otsego, who runs the wing team just like we do. So like we've got some film on that from early on, and then we've got the film on their St. Mary's game, which they do. They want to pack it in tight and run it and stuff like that. So they're stout inside. So we can't do some of the things that St. Mary's tried to do to them because we watched the game and we know that it didn't work and they shut it down, and they did a really good job at it. So, just kind of scheming around like what we know their strengths are and what our strengths are and how we can find ways to exploit, what we find as weaknesses for them or where they're just not as tough, is all the key to the game.
Health, obviously a big deal at this time of the year. How healthy are you guys? Are you guys feeling pretty good with where you're at?
We've got 99% of our guys, but
good.
Jackson Schaefer broke his foot week 9. He wasn't able to go last week, and we felt it, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He's still not going to be cleared this week. So, for a kid that he's been playing his best football coming down the stretch, and a lot of our success is because of, he's just really bought into like, I want to block, I want to hit people, I want to be physical on defense, and then when I get the ball, I'm going to be a mean, nasty runner. So to not have him in the backfield is a little tough, but we've got 2 other good backs, and we've got other guys that are ready to step in. So, we're going to ride those guys, and, we've had lots of people touch the ball. Like, I'm kind of looking at our stat sheet right now. We've got 11 different kids that have carried the ball for us this year. So, it's a next man up mentality, and we need somebody to go just try to be mean and nasty, just like he was, and, play to their abilities. And, that's the game plan.
It's funny. I did a soccer game over the weekend, and I was talking with one of the announcers about this. And to me, you always are going to have a playoff run. If you make a run in the playoffs, somebody that you don't expect or that maybe doesn't contribute as much has to contribute more in these games. Even if Jackson's healthy, you need somebody in these moments to step up. You need somebody who may not have always done the right thing or whatever, for something to click this week so that they can do something that maybe they haven't done yet this year. And obviously we talked about both of our love for the Guardians earlier in the year. Yeah. And same thing, like in that playoff run, you had guys step up that really hadn't been stepping up all year. Mm-hmm. I imagine this is a great opportunity for you to challenge somebody for Friday and say, listen, we don't know if we're going to have Jackson back at all, and our season could be done on Friday. So we need somebody to take that mantle, to seize that moment and kind of do as best you can to represent what Jackson did for us.
Absolutely. And, it's always been the next man up mentality around here. And a lot of these younger kids too, like it's a shot to put your thumbprint on the team for next season, because we're going to graduate out 22 kids. And, you look at our starters and stuff, and we're very senior heavy. I think we're going to return between offense and defense. We got 6 kids coming back next year. So, who's going to be that guy that's going to step up and, to kind of take the reins? It's like, I'm going to be the guy now for a run, and I'm going to be the guy next year to lead us through the off season. So, we've kind of put that on the table for the kids already. And, we've had a few kids that have had a really good week of practice that haven't had that opportunity, that are seizing it. So, we're excited about a few kids, and, we'll see how it goes on Friday.
Much like Chad and Fremont Rusted, you guys played Clay really tough and you pushed them to the limit. When you look at a game like that, and you look at how close you were, granted, it's not a win, but you're still really close against a really good football team. One that if people probably predicted coming into that would have thought the spread or the difference would have been a lot higher. Is that something you point to with those kids and say, we can do this. We can play at a high level. We can play with a team. And not that Defiance is the same team as Clay. Obviously, they do different things. But just being able to rise to the level of competition, rise to the moment, you've done it already this year. We can do it again.
Well, and it's not even that. We know that the Cardinal division, even a Southwood team that went 0-4 in the Cardinal, they're still a really good football team.
Sure.
They had a couple games that didn't go their way, including ours. It was tight down to the wire. We scored with a minute and a half left, and then we came up with a nice interception to seal it. But they battled, and they're a good football team too. So it's not just that we almost beat Clay, but we went through the gauntlet of that Cardinal division, and we came out pretty well, minus that Fremont game. And to tell those kids we know how to win, we know how to take care of our business, and we know how to play football in a fast, physical way. And grind out those tough ones and those close ones, because we've had quite a few. And that's the thing that we're hanging our hat on is we're never out of it. Keep fighting every play, every snap. One snap at a time. That's how we beat these teams. Because we talked, I think the last time too. Even when Anthony Wayne came out here, coming out of half, we were right in that game. Yeah. And if we don't play the worst 6 minutes of football I've ever seen in my life coming out of halftime, that's a whole different game. We were battling with them, and that's, there's lots of games like that this year that things go a little different, and we might be sitting up at a 3 seed right now hosting a playoff game because we eked those out. And we talk about all those games are defined by who makes 2 or 3 big plays and who's going to make the 2 or 3 big plays. And up until week 10, after the Clay game, Southview and Napoleon, we made those big plays. And last week we didn't make any big plays. So, that's the big difference. And, we're going to play our hard-nosed football, and we're going to do our thing. But who's going to be the guy that's going to step up and make those 2 or 3 game-changing plays that make a difference in the stat line at the end of the game?
When you look at this Defiance team, I know you've mentioned some things about them already, but what keeps you up at night about this group that you've seen from them on tape?
Their interior 3 are just they're good. It's going to be very similar to what we saw last week. Fremont came in, and their D-line was they're mean, nasty.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
They are not a 5-5 team as
No.
far as what they put on that field. That's a good football team. And, those kids are playing at a high level right now. They're putting it together at the right time. And, they're going to go give Highland some fits, just from their physicality alone. And so, for us, it's kind of the same thing. They've kind of got a same pedigree build. They've got good linebackers that flow and play tight. They've got 3 interior linemen that are pretty darn good. And, it's, how do we make sure that we're staying in their way? How are we going to protect them? How are we going to keep them out of the backfield? And that's been the thing that, we focus a ton on.
And then offensively, you said they like to run the ball. I'm assuming defensively, sound tackling. I know it sounds pretty simple, but really when you're playing against a team that likes to run the ball, you just can't allow a lot of yards after contact.
Yeah. I think we match up really well against them on defense this week. I think it's going to be a close game. I think, I saw the spread in the game was 7. It's going to be a 1 possession game by the end of the night. I feel like, both teams are too good to let one team get away with this in the game. So, for us, it's just, we got to be sound, make tackles, fly around the ball, and make plays and know where you're supposed to be. We can't get beat on stuff that we've been seeing all week. It's from scout team and stuff like that. We should be prepared. They should be watching film. They shouldn't have many surprises left. And, I think we got a good beat on what they do and what they like to do. And, it really comes down to who's going to execute. So,
and I think the argument now is if you're not locked in coming into week 11, you're never going to be locked in. It really feels like one of those where if you're not watching film, if you're not doing the things that we've been asking you to do all year, you're not that serious about this. This is really that week where you got to lay it all on the line, and you got to do that if you're going to get to a state championship game. I know that's way ahead of the curve, but as each round goes in, that buy-in has to be more and more and more.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And, we have a good group of kids that are bought in, and, our seniors are setting the way for the young kids to prepare the same way. And, some of those juniors and sophomores and stuff that are getting their looks and getting their playtime this week, they followed suit. And it's, it's really cool to see when I'm pulling up huddle and looking at film time, and we're looking at multiple kids, an hour and a half plus for film for the week. It means that they're studying the game. And, that was one of our big goals at the beginning of the year, is just to make sure that our kids are being students of the game and not just fans.
That's one of those advantages to Huddle that they probably don't always realize when they first start playing, is you can monitor how much someone's engaged with that account, and how serious a guy is about playing. And I imagine that the guys you would have expected, like a Jay Shannon and players like that, are the ones that are probably hopefully consuming the most amount of film. How much is Jay going to be counted on this week without Jackson? I know that you want other guys to step up, but I imagine he's going to have to give you just a little bit more as long as Jackson's out.
Well, he's our home run hitter. I mean, he's dynamic, he's athletic, he's hard to tackle. He sees the field really, really well. He's got great vision. So when we're putting him in some of the stuff that we do, like our jets and stuff like that, like, he's our dude. Like, he's leading the way. He's got 12 rushing touchdowns. He's at 950 yards. And, that's impressive for a kid that's got to share handoffs with 2-3 other really good backs. We're teams, we've run for 2,500 yards this year. That's no slouch. I know it's not what we did last year at, over 3,000, but, he's got to be the guy that leads the way. And he knows that. And he's had a good week of practice, and he's mentally locked in, and he's ready to go, and he's chomping at the bit. You can kind of see a little bit of the swagger going as the week goes on, which is always good. And that's where he needs to be mentally to kind of help us, go get this one.
And I would say, even though you ran for more yards, you didn't have 6 wins going into the playoffs a year ago either. So the fact that not only are you going to finish, regardless of what happens this week, with a winning record, as we talked about beginning of the year, first year as a head coach, taking over a program that does have a lot of seniors, but you're still trying to rebuild and trying to do some different things. I hope you're very happy. I know that you're not going to be happy if you lose this week, but I hope you're, at least when you get to the end of the year, you can kind of look back and be impressed, because I think 6 wins, not always the easiest, and you beat some really good football teams this year.
We have, and we've had a really good year, but I think the biggest thing is just, like, we talked a lot this year about the legacy that those seniors are going to leave with the program. And I think that, they're leaving us with a group of kids behind them that understand how to prepare and how to win. And, the work that needs to go into being a 6-4, 7-3, and a playoff team, and a team that, is, right on the doorstep to winning a Cardinal Division championship. And, that's always the goals that we have, is we want to get to the playoffs. We want to make a run. We want to be in the mix for that Cardinal and win a title. It's been a long time since BG's won an NLL title. So, having all those goals on the table, and those kids knowing that, like, it doesn't happen by just showing up. Like, you got to put the work in, even when we've got a whole ton of 2 and 3 sport athletes, like, getting those kids in the weight room at 6 a.m, and, like, they understand that those kids that came before them have been doing that for 3-4 years, and that's where their success is coming from. And the senior class has seen some rough seasons too. Like, their freshman year, we went 2-8. Their sophomore year, we went 3-7, and then they started to turn the corner last year, and then, put together what they put together this year, and being 2 points away from being 7-3, and a couple things here and there going our way. You never know what it could have been. So, we're right on the doorstep of some good things here. It's just seeing who's going to step up.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, because when you look at that Clay game, you look at, throwing last week out the window, you look at some of those other games, to win some of those, that's probably, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, 2 years ago, games that you probably don't win, or if it comes down to a couple of plays, usually those couple of plays probably go the other way. So I imagine that it's probably gratifying to see that shift a little bit, where it's starting to trend in the other direction versus trending the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And, it's a mindset too. Like, we've talked in the past about, like, the kids falling into that BG mindset that, like, we're just always mediocre at all the sports that we do. And, like, talking to them about, like, that's all self-imposed, and, like, you don't have to believe in that narrative, and you can change that. And after that Otsego week, they really did. And, we were, we turned around from a team that, like, people are like, oh yeah, they'll be all right. And, they went 0-4 in the division, and we handled them last year too. They got a good team. And, we've, a lot of the coaches that we've talked to, Coach Long was real nice with his, with the things that he said to me before the game last week about, the way the team's looking and stuff like that. And, it's good to hear that, but, we want the results on the field. And,
Right.
But, we've had them though too. Like, we've, that Napoleon game was a big game for our program. For our kids, they beat us 3 years in a row. So it felt good for those seniors to finally get over the hump with them too. And, that's a real good football team over there. And they're another playoff team too that, that we beat. And that's a good feeling. So.
Before I let you go, what are some of the keys this Friday as far as you feel in order to come away successful?
We got to control the line, both sides of the ball. We can't get pushed around. They've got 3 dudes that are going to go. They're big guys. They're high motor guys, but we need to be ready for that. And I don't think last week we were. I think this week we will be. We've got to take care of the ball. And like I said before, we got to have a few of those guys come up with like those 2 or 3 big plays that just flip the scripts. Get the momentum in our favor. Flip the field. Whatever it's got to be to just make a big difference. Who are those kids that are going to step up and make those 2 or 3 big plays that make a difference in the end of the game?
Well, we appreciate it. I've been so happy to kind of get to know you this year and looking forward to continuing to talk with you. Best of luck on Friday, and I hope that we're talking after a win next time.
I hope so too. Thank you very much.
All right, that was Sean Kiss, the head football coach for the Bowling Green Bobcats. We'll go ahead and flip again, rapid fire. We're going to bring in our next guest, and that is the head football coach of the Findlay Trojans, one of the happiest guys I know, and that's Coach Stephen Adams. Coach, thanks very much for spending some time with us again tonight.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So I know that after we talked to you, the Whitmer game clearly didn't go the way that you guys would have hoped. I know you were coming off an injury to Landon, and I think he probably was a little limited in what he could do that Friday. But a nice win last week against Northview. I know maybe the competition isn't there, but just to be able to finish things on a high note at the end of the regular season, how's the team feel after getting a win in Week 10?
I think they feel pretty good. I think there was excitement about just being able to go out and do what we've talked about, all week long. I told our guys, we have a grand opportunity, and I wasn't going to let anybody get in the way of how we finished the season. So I really wanted to make sure we honored our seniors the right way, who have given so much to our program. And, we kept the focus really about us, obviously prepared for the schematics that we needed to prepare for Northview, but it really came down to what we do, how we do it, and ultimately being able to go out there and execute and have a clean game.
One guy who I know we talked about him before Week 9, but until you see Jacob Ragland in person, I don't think you can fully understand just how talented he really is. And I don't know that we even talked about scholarship offers or if he's gotten any looks. I certainly hope he is at this point. But what a special guy. I mean, in that game, I know you struggled a little bit against Whitmer, but he had, I think it was all but like 28 of the total yards that you guys had receiving. Really just a special kid and can be a matchup nightmare for a lot of teams. And I know you guys obviously know that already, but I don't think you can really appreciate how good he is until you see him in person.
Jacob's one of those kids who, is a testament to kind of sticking it out and sticking through. Maybe a kid that didn't play a lot as much kind of earlier in like maybe the middle school years. And, I talked to him about that a lot. And he said, I just knew I was better than some of the guys that were in front of me, that kept him kind of excited about the opportunity to play at the highest level. And he kind of came into his own last year. I think about the Buckeye schedule we had last year. And he had some moments early in the season, but really when Javante became kind of a very focal point on stopping, really he was the next guy to become the explosive guy who, when you kind of forecast into the future, was going to be our next alpha at the receiver position. And, he's done a phenomenal job, and he's burst onto the scene. I mean, he's over 1,000 yards receiving this year. And every game we've had, I think I looked at the Buckeye stats we had to do for our league stuff, and I think every game he scored in every Buckeye game, and he dominated in the biggest games. And even though we came up short, he gave us a chance. So yes, he's a special kid. Got some things on the horizon, and I think some more things will come.
Good.
He's a very quiet, very unassuming. I really don't even think he knows how good he actually is, which is sometimes great, right? And sometimes you wish you can get a little bit more, but a very humble kid who, like you said, has done a phenomenal job of dominating play and giving us a chance when we didn't maybe necessarily have one.
I know that you obviously know Justin Keller, who does the games with me. And for Justin Keller to literally wax poetic about a player, he did that about Jacob in the game that we did. And I think that just speaks to how special for someone like Justin Keller to see that, who obviously has been around high flight talent like yourself, to see that. I was really impressed. I know a lot of people were. I go back to that Whitmer game, and that's another one too, where I would say I don't think people realize how close that really is. I know people say 37-6 is not close. You guys were inches away on a couple of plays that if they go the other way, it's completely different. I imagine that's kind of the bumps and bruises you take with a younger team, especially on the offensive side. But I'm imagining you're probably continuing to beat the drum of we have to execute if we want to win. And you were, like I said, inches away on certain plays of totally flipping the way that game went.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, hats off to Whitmer. They played a phenomenal game, and they came with it. I thought their energy was great. I think their physicality and the competition they brought to the table that night was great. And we knew just kind of with the nature of where we are that we would have to be, I won't say perfect, but we just have to be able to execute and not hurt ourselves, right? Like those little moments you get where you get a holding call or where you get something that just keeps you off track, or maybe it's a first down on offense and you throw it and you drop it. Like those things, we just knew we couldn't afford to miss. Defensively, you can't afford to miss a tackle or miss an assignment, especially in these big games like that. So we knew that going into it, and like you said, we just had moments where we could have easily flipped that momentum and knock at the door and stay in it. But ultimately, they did their part. But that's kind of been the name of the game, unfortunately, at times this year. And I know our kids are eager to get that fixed, and I know they came back and did that this last week and trying to do it moving forward.
Well, I knew it wasn't your night when the tip pass that was caught for the first down. I thought, man, you can't be in a better spot. Get a hand on it and then literally tip it right to the Whitmer receiver for a first down. Going into this week, new season, you kind of throw everything out the window. You kind of, I think, flush what is going on. And you kind of have a renewed spirit. At least I would hope you guys would coming into this week. Is there a lot of kind of impressing upon the guys like, hey, this is not, we don't have to worry about what we did. Everybody's 0-0 coming into this week. It's a new season. Let's just go out and do what we can on Friday to see what we can get and try and come away with a win.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think new season. I think new opportunities. I think you think of every bracket at some point in time has somebody or a couple of teams that, maybe based on their competition throughout the course of the year, they just start hitting their stride in the playoffs and are able to, pull an upset, if you want to consider that, right? Like, it's just about being able to go out there and execute one play at a time. I think we say these things throughout the course of the year, but we say it with intentionality. But then when you get to the playoffs, it really is one and done. Like, I mean, it really is. If you don't execute, you can find yourself behind, or you can find yourself going home. So I think everything, there's a standard, but everything does mean that much more in the playoffs. It could be just one notch higher. If you can just go one notch higher, it means everything. So, we look at it as a great opportunity. Our kids are excited. I will tell you, my seniors are super excited for the opportunity in front of them. So I think that's what's really kind of kept a good bounce about us. And I think they've won. They invite the challenge that we have in front of us. And I would say that obviously with what us and the coaching staff have presented, we've done a good job of talking about that. But really, I think our seniors have really kind of pulled the reins in and said, hey, like, what an opportunity we have. So really, it's nice when it has to come from a coach, right? But like, it's even better when it comes from the kids.
And I look at the involvement of Ryan, and I know we talked about just how devastating that was to the group and all that, but how has he kind of evolved? I know you probably still want him to be at as much as he possibly can be. And when he's involved like that, no, obviously he can't help you on the field, but that's a guy who, whether he's in pads on the field or on the sideline, is a leader still of this group. How has he evolved his leadership for this group this year and kind of help this group move forward, knowing that, he'd love to be out there too, but he can still serve a purpose with this group?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? Just being a voice. I think he knows, he's an extension of our offensive staff. He was that on the field, and I think obviously, if we would have been able to see him in the course of the year, you would have seen it that much more. Mm-hmm. Like, you would have seen him have full control of the offense. And so I think with that being said, it's nice because, he can come back, and when he's been available to be there, and as he's gotten better with his knee, he's been right there sitting next to Landon or Riley and going through the iPad and going over the TV with the previous segment of plays. So I think it's kind of forced him to see things from a coach's perspective. And I think there's some conversations, some comments that we've made towards each other where, like, yeah, buddy, like this is coaching, you know. And I think so. I think him being able to see it in that light has given him a new perspective, even for himself. Of like talking with teammates, talking with fellow coaches on the questions that he asked. I think it's like I said, you don't want to be in this position, but in this position, he has done some really good things. And I think just his presence. I think I think you can't underestimate the presence of a kid like him and what he brings to the table to your team. And you know, Ryan's not really a big rah-rah guy. Like he's not, you know, he's Rye. But I think what we've realized is how much his presence and being there brings comfort and brings about a good spirit for everybody.
And what he might not realize, I'm sure you know this, having coached quite a few guys who have gone Division I, but especially at the quarterback position, to be able to have the analytical mind, to be able to break stuff down, especially on the fly, to have that in a quarterback, that's only going to serve him better when he gets to Georgia.
Well, no doubt about it. And that's what we're super excited about. And I think as our kids have talked about before, you know, once again, do it for our seniors, how special it would be to be able to go out there and do something special this Friday night in honor of our seniors and in honor of a guy like Ryan and all our other guys who have been, unfortunately, come up with some injuries that have ended their season this year.
Well, you guys are the 10 seed and you have drawn the 7 seed, and I'm sorry, but you did not draw a prototypical 7 seed. Lakewood is one of the best teams in the state. You guys, unfortunately, because of the schedule they played and how well you guys did this year, get to face off against St. Ed's. They're very good. Yeah. Not that you guys can't pull off that upset by any stretch, but I'm sure they probably presented a lot of things that keep you up at night so far.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you know, we respect what they've done. We respect the championship pedigree that they bring to the table. We notice that. We respect that. We honor that, right? Like that's completely fair, you know. But you know, we don't fear being able to go out there and compete. If anything, we're excited for the opportunity. You know, I think when in any moment here, right, in order to win a championship, you're going to have to play a team like St. Ed's anyway. And I think it's a great opportunity for our community and for our kids to go up and be able to play against such a prestigious school like this. I think it's a good a chance to really see what it's like, and also see what we're like, and see in this moment like what we can do to compete against a team like this. I know I'm super excited about it. I think the kids, like I said, they're excited about it. You know, this is the standard program in Ohio for how many years? Yeah. And yes, I mean, obviously, you know, you draw them, you're like, okay, you know, but at the same time, you walk away at one point in time and you're excited. And, you know, even throughout the course of some, you know, conversations that you run into with people from the community, you know, one of the big questions I've asked one person and a couple people in particular, you know, one person mentioned, hey, you know, oh man, what are you guys going to do? What would you tell your son or daughter if they got an opportunity to play against one of the best in the state, right? Like, that's how we're approaching it. I mean, I would tell my son if he had this opportunity, what a great opportunity you have to show what you've done in the offseason up to this point in time to go out there and compete against the best. Like, let's go, you know, and I don't see it any other way. So, you know, we're excited. We've game planned. I think the kids have a great spirit all week long, have done some really good things. We had a day off, or they had a day off today, and came in a little earlier. They did some, they got their lift in, felt good, came out to practice in a good spirit, played some music during practice. It's been a good couple of days, and you know, we still have one more day tomorrow to prepare and finalize everything, and we're excited about that. And we'll get on the road and go see what it all means. Before
I let you go, kind of some of the keys that you feel like to being successful on Friday.
I think we just have to. I mean, there's all the normal things, right? Like if we just talk about, like, you know, of course, you know, being able to start fast, right? I think start fast. You know, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. Want to be able to stay ahead of the chains on offense. Want to be able to get them off and behind the chains as far as defense goes, and then obviously not kill ourselves in the special teams game. You know, if we can create some turnovers, you know, if we can kind of get one off their quarterback, you know, and get some positive momentum, I think it's going to be huge. Just these playoff games, you got to stay on track. You can't shoot yourself in the foot because teams usually feed off of that. So I think that's important. But I think it's, you know, go out there and lay it all on the line. I mean, that's really about it, right? Like you block until that whistle's blown, you know, you tackle until that guy's down on the ground. But you compete, and you compete hard. So I think those little things will matter in this game. But ultimately, you know, doing the little things right and going out there and winning each play.
Well, I would love nothing more than to see you in Week 12 up at Whitmer Memorial Stadium. So best of luck to you on Friday, and hope that we get to see each other in a couple of weeks after you win next week.
No doubt.
Thanks
for putting this together. This is awesome stuff, man.
All right, thanks, Coach. We'll see you.
As always.
That was Stephen Adams, the head football coach of the Findlay Trojans. Rapid fire, we're going to go to our next guest, and that is the head football coach of the Perrysburg Yellow Jackets. We haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks, and that's Dirk Connor. Dirk, always appreciate the time, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And like Stephen had kind of echo, this is a pretty cool thing you put together. So thanks for doing this tonight.
Well, I wanted to talk to everybody because we all had good conversations this year. Dan, who hosts the show with me, we talked about how literally every coach that we've talked to, we've had great conversations with everybody. And I don't want to leave anybody out because, you don't know how stuff's going to play out. Let's talk about your end of the season. Clearly not the way you wanted it to go, dropping 2 out of the last 4. The Whitmer game, I thought you guys played about as well as you could. Obviously, there's some plays you want back here and there, but really tough physical football game all the way through. Last Friday, I thought maybe Anthony Wayne caught you off guard a little bit with some of the passing game, but how do you guys recover to the end of the season a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know that there's no that we recover. We're not sitting around licking our wounds. We're used to winning. We don't like losing, and it's not a feeling of sorrow, but more kind of ticked off and ready to get back on the field. And I thought, we responded well after the Whitmer game, and I thought probably the Findlay game was our best game of the season coming back from that. And I know that, our kids are hungry to get back on the field, as am I and the rest of our coaching staff.
I think you have, and I've said this multiple times over the last couple of weeks, after watching Eric and Joe play in the middle of that defense, I don't know that there's a better middle of a defense in Northwest Ohio, and I think you might even be able to argue in the state. Joe is a phenomenal linebacker. Eric is a great nose, and a lot of teams are going to try and run up the middle against you guys, much like Whitmer did, and they're going to find out that is not an easy chore. What has made them work so well together and so special?
Well, it's a lot of things. I mean, it's you can't just put it on one thing right there, but first and foremost, both those kids are just incredibly physical. Physicality is a word that I use a lot.
Yeah.
It's the number one trait we look for in players at any position on the football field. And those guys bring it in that regard every day. But, another trait that those guys have that I love, and I think is so important for good football players, they play football as fast as their bodies can move. There's a lot of guys that clock a certain time on a 40 or run this on a track or whatever. But it gets a little different when you go out there on that football field, and those guys play football at the maximum speed that their bodies allow them to move. And, when a kid's able to do that, you usually have a pretty good football player.
When you have a group that's going in as a high seed, I think it's easy to look at records and you look at where Medina's at, 2-8, not the best year. I'm sure you guys are doing everything you can to make sure that the group understands that it's not going to just be some cakewalk because the team's 2-8. But I also imagine that a lot of times it's senior leaders in that group that also keep the guys locked in to understand, like, this isn't just going to be a walk in the park because the team coming in is 2-8.
Yeah, they know that. We're experienced enough that our approach is the same all the time. The hype may not be there as it is, but hype is all noise from the outside in anyway. And our kids have prepared really well the last couple of days. We've had good practices, but our kids have prepared well all year, and it's a mature group, and they're fun to work with, and that's part of the thing that provides motivation for this week and next week and beyond. And no matter who we play, is we don't want this thing to end. We have a lot of fun doing this together, and I'm not ready to start coming home at 4:00 quite yet.
Yeah, I think that's the reality that a lot of high school kids maybe don't always lock into. Is it's one thing to say that if you're a senior that your playing days are done after the last game of the season. Not everybody will be done, but most of them will be. And it's one of those that sometimes it's not always the easiest to impress upon. You don't realize how that feels until it happens. And so that really should hopefully drive a lot of these kids to understand that this could be it. Not that anybody wants it to be, but once that's done, it's done. There's no coming back. There's no next week.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we don't try to drive that home.
Sure.
We don't want fear to be a motivator, but what
Right.
you said is exactly right. And anybody that's played this game, you don't realize how awesome and how precious it is until the clock is hit 0 on that last one, and then it becomes real very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's one of those. I just remember even like when I worked at Ohio State and the last bowl game, and I was just a sideline helper, but when that last second ticks off, and we beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, and I still sobbed like a baby because, again, it didn't sink in until all of a sudden that game was over. And it's hard to impress upon sometimes, like, you don't know what that feels like. And trust us, who have gone through it before, it's not fun.
Yeah, it brings up an old Lou Holtz quote. For those who understand, no explanation is necessary. And for those who don't, no explanation will suffice.
That's right. No, that's perfect. I look at just the way that you guys have carried yourself through the rest of the season. The 2 games notwithstanding, if I had told you at the beginning of the year 8-2, I'm sure you'd probably have been pretty happy. Not with the no, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I appreciate the honesty at least.
And when it does become happy, let me know because it's time for me to find a new job.
That's fair enough. But overall, just I mean, your thoughts on the way the season went, I guess then.
Yeah, I mean, we feel, I hate to reflect because we're still looking forward.
Yeah,
I mean, we feel like we've got a whole lot of things left in front of us and a whole lot of season left in front of us. And so it's hard to reflect, and it's easier to reflect on going backwards. But
sure,
obviously there's 2 games that we didn't do what we needed to do, but at the same time, hats off to our opponents in those situations. But we feel like we have a really good win in us. And, we're hoping that we're granted another opportunity to really to check a big one off the list. And so we're going to keep fighting for that right now.
And that's what happened a year ago. We talked about that back in week 6. Again, coming into that game against Whitmer last year in the first round, the 10-7, I think a lot of people assume because you lost before, you probably lose again. That's just the way people, I think, tend to think. And as I said, at that point, you were looking for, can this group put it all together? And they did. And I imagine it's the same thing, not this week maybe necessarily, but as you start getting further and further into the playoffs, you got to beat good teams every week if you want to make a deep run.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're playing good teams every week. Even records aside, man, this Medina program has been a very good program for, as long as I've paid attention. So at least the last 4 or 5 years. And so we're playing a good team this week. We're expecting to win, and we expect to play a good team again next week. But that's what we're here for. I mean, that's what we signed up for. That's what we work for. And we're excited. We love the preparation that goes into it. And, we're just excited to play again on Friday night and really fight like crazy for a win and hopefully check one off and then do the process all over again and enjoy the heck out of it the next week.
Well, kind of like Coach Adams said, embracing the opportunity versus worrying about what might go wrong or what might not go right, embracing that opportunity to prove just how good you are versus, oh my gosh, look who we're going to have to play this week.
Absolutely.
When I look at just overall the home games, to be able to get that 3 seed, to have, assuming you win this Friday, 2 guaranteed home games, I'm sure you are thrilled with that, to have that ability to not have to travel. A lot of coaches, I think sometimes when you don't get it, downplay it a little bit, like, it doesn't really matter because, you have to go on the road eventually and play. But how crucial is it to you guys to be able to be and have the same routine these first 2 weeks of the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's a bonus. I don't want to say it's crucial because, we're still looking forward to getting on a bus and going somewhere, hopefully in a couple weeks. But at the same time, it's awesome for our community to get to be at home. It's great for the Swarm to be able to be as full as possible this time of year. And those guys are awesome. And I want to give a little shout out to them. We haven't delivered a couple times, but they've delivered every week, and we hope they keep delivering for us.
It was phenomenal that Whitmer week. I'm sorry. I remember the name of the guy who came out from that teenage kid. I can't remember his name, but some of the stuff he showed. And when we got there, I got there super early. And there were guys already painted fully pink, and we still had like 2 hours to go until kickoff. The student section there is, dare I say, probably the best in Northwest Ohio. And that's no disrespect to any of the other ones we've seen, but they were engaged. They were loud. They were organized. It was really good.
Yeah, it's not probably. They are, man. And
I say that I have to play the political game.
Yeah, but. No, I say that not only, as a guy that's obviously I love those kids and it's great to be in the school with them every day and have the type of support that we have. But I also stood on the other sideline for a few years.
Yeah, that's true.
Coming to the stadium. And that was one of the appealing parts about coming here. And those guys are awesome. And they're rooting for a team that's chasing championships. And one of these days we're going to provide that for them. But, we're all going to keep fighting together, and it's a lot of fun doing it.
And I'm sure when the community's bought in like it was that Friday, and I'm sure the way they traveled last week, even though it didn't go your way, and then again this Friday to have that community backing, you can just feel a buzz in Perrysburg. I remember even before the game last year, and that wasn't a pun intended there, but you can just feel but you can just feel the energy that kind of flows through the town when you guys are playing well.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really special to be a part of, and it's something I'm very appreciative of.
What have you seen from Medina on tape? What challenges do they present to you guys?
Oh, a lot, man. They're kind of a scary team, especially, let's just start on offense, because that's where you always seem to start if anybody knows anything about Medina football, and it's just they spread out all kinds of crazy formations, and they're going to throw the ball all over the place, and you got to stay sound and understand. There's some similarities in playing Findlay in the sense that Findlay doesn't throw as many formations and things, and but they're going to hit a few things. Like you're not going to cause every pass to be incomplete. You're not going to limit them every single play. So a lot of it has to do with let's make them earn it, and let's stay on track. And when we get a chance to get off the field, let's make sure we get off the field against them without giving up home runs. And so that's the challenge with a team like this is making sure you find a way to do that, and you get guys lined up right and dropping right and rallying to the football. And defensively, big physical group. They're a big physical group on that side of the ball, and their front really gets after it pretty good. And so we're going to have our hands full making sure that we're able to block them and picking up some of the blitzes and things that they bring. But like I said at the very beginning, I mean, records aside, it's a very good looking football team on film, and we've prepared as such. And whether we win by 1 or 100 at this time of year, it doesn't make any difference. We just want to do what we need to do to get a W and be playing again, and hopefully talking to you again week 12.
Well, just that kind of survive and advance mentality. Do be one play better, be 1 point better. That's really all you need to keep going at this point.
Absolutely, especially it's November football now.
Yeah.
It's big kid football, and we're gonna approach it that way.
When you look at the potential of making this into what you hope is a deep run. Health is always a concern. Not that you have to give any specifics, but are you guys relatively healthy going into this week?
Yeah, we've been pretty blessed. We've been able to stay as healthy as a team can stay at this time of year. And we're hoping to play a couple more weeks because we think we might get a couple back that haven't been able to. And so, we'll see how all that goes. But we feel really blessed with where we're at from a health perspective. And regardless of whether that's true or not, we're going to put 11 on the field every single play and expect them to do what needs to be done to win the football game.
Before I let you go, I have to ask, what are some of the keys to being successful on Friday?
Yeah, so again, limiting big plays would be really nice if we could cause some turnovers. Get them off schedule, force them into some longer yardage situations where they're a little less balanced in how they attack things. And, we have to be able to run the football. And so, it's going to be important that we're able to establish that while still – being efficient in the passing game and keeping some balance on offense. And, we want this to be a physical football game and not necessarily a big play fest, and kind of turn it into our style and how we like to do things.
Well, and imagine kind of dominating the pace, the style. That's something that you probably try and do every week, I imagine.
Yeah, usually the team that's able to do that comes out pretty successfully in the end. So obviously that's a goal, but we'll do whatever it takes to have one more point than they have on Friday night.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time. Love talking with you. Thanks again for doing this. I really do appreciate it. And we will hopefully chat with you next week.
That's awesome. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
That was Dirk Connor, the head football coach for the Perrysburg Yellow Jackets. Always appreciative of their time. While we wait for John Gallius to hop on the line with us, do want to say thank you to our friends over at Car Stereo One. Car Stereo One specializes in providing high-quality audio systems, speakers, and accessories for your vehicle. With their wide range of products and expert advice, they can help you upgrade your car's sound system and enhance your driving experience. They do more than just car stereos. They do remote starters, window tint, speakers and subwoofers, bikes and boats, custom interiors, vehicle wraps, and they also will do custom wheel kits as well. So make sure that you check out our friends, Parker Lopez and his team over at Car Stereo One. Always appreciative of their time. They're just so great to work with. Give them a call, 419-474-5553. You can visit them in person, 3120 Central Avenue. And then, of course, you can check them out online at carstereo1.com. or like I said, going in person, 3120 Central Avenue. So thanks to Car Stereo One for their continued support of the NLL Weekly podcast. Looks like John is working through some technical issues, so we will stand by as he kind of gets going there. But so far, so good. We've had everybody on, and again, you always hope to be on schedule, and we've done a pretty good job of that so far.
Right, it's been fast and furious so far, and looking forward to wrapping it up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I love the confidence that Dirk Connor has, and I love that he is not ashamed to just basically lay it on the line and say, yeah, no, we expect to play a deep playoff run, and we're not going to accept anything less than that. I appreciate that kind of mentality because it does eventually kind of feed into the kids and trickle down to the kids.
And you even mentioned it when we started off with Coach Long, who had the same thing in the when we win, and that is the mentality you have to go into no matter where you are on that bracket.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the plan is we're going into this football game and we're going to win because we're not done with our season. And that's the only mentality you can possibly have in this situation. It's the beauty of the playoffs, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the playoffs are getting to the point where it's going to get more and more exciting as time goes on and things move on, because I look at this and looks like we're almost ready with John, but I look at this situation and there's a lot of guys who I think have an ability to make a big mark on the playoffs. And I think Perrysburg's one of them. I don't believe in, and I think Dirk said it best, we have not played our best game yet against a good team, and I think they're more than capable of doing that. I know you saw it back in week 6 as well.
And that is the beautiful thing about this is also when you look at a team, even as far back as week 6, by week 11, you are probably running into a completely different team.
Yeah.
The way things have the rest of that season has evolved. So it'll be very cool to see where teams are, not just from week 1 to week 11, but as much as week 8 to week 11, and see how dynamic they've become and how much they've grown as a team.
Sure. Well, let's go ahead and bring in the most popular man in Oregon, Ohio, and that is the head football coach of the Clay Eagles, John Gallius. First off, congratulations, sir. I know we talked about it back earlier in the season, but you said the goal was to be division champs. We talked about being able to complete that. You did that, so congratulations to you guys. What a great achievement.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, obviously that was our goal from day one was to be division champs, and special group of kids got it done. So it's been a great season.
When I look at this group, I don't think I could have said enough nice things about Mason Heinschel when we played you guys. And I go back to that week, and I've said on multiple occasions, when you look at the spread in that score, that was not really indicative of really how well you guys did play. Yeah, 45-14 doesn't look like a close game, but Mason was phenomenal in that ball game, and I imagine it's looked a lot like that throughout the year. But when you look at what Mason's done this year, just kind of recap what you've seen and maybe even better than what you expected.
Oh, absolutely. He has been incredible. He's taken his game to the next level. He has not thrown an interception since week 3 at Whitmer. So he's been really great with his decision making. We've given him a little more freedom in the offense this year, and he's just been phenomenal.
Obviously, receiver wise, we talked about Troy, we talked about Hudson, but it can't just be those guys. It has to be other guys. I know that Jake Tickemeyer went down with an injury this year as well. How gratifying is it for you to see other guys step up? Because that's something else that we talked about back before week 3, which is in the past, the depth has certainly been an issue for you guys. So the fact that you had the depth to be able to still compete for a championship probably had to feel pretty gratifying to know that it's not just one guy or two guys anymore that make an impact for us.
Yeah, this team is by far the deepest team that I've had since I've been the head coach at Clay. It's been really great to see Landon Eversman really blossom as a running back. He's played defensive end for us all year, and really the plan going in was he was kind of going to be a spot guy at tailback, and it's turned out where he is the guy at tailback, and he's still playing defensive end for us too. So he's been just such a pleasant surprise and just a huge contributor to our success.
I want to rewind back to week 4, and I know I'm taking you back a little ways, but that game against Findlay, I would guess, and I think we even kind of maybe talked about it a little bit at the time, but it felt like going into that Findlay game that might have been the biggest game at Ted Federici Field in a while. And to have all of the hoopla and all of the extra stuff that came with that in that particular week, to go out there to perform the way that you guys did, knowing that Findlay was coming off of a win the week prior against Southview. Obviously, we didn't know how banged up Southview was, but you're in that situation. That had to feel like a moment for you guys where you could say, this is how good we can be. This should be what we aspire to be every week. Clearly, you don't want to give up 40 points. And I know the offensive numbers were pretty gaudy either way, but that's still one where you have to say, we can be this good. We can beat good teams. Sometimes it takes shootouts to beat good teams like that. Sometimes we got to play better defensively because we can't move the ball. But to have that baseline, how big was that to get that win when you did, especially coming off of the Whitmer game?
Yeah, our kids prepared so well that week, and we got up on them big early. Offensively, we were really on fire that night. We had a running clock on them at one time, which unbelievable. And I think for our kids, that game definitely showed them like, yeah, we can play. We can play with anybody. I know from a coaching staff, we kind of looked around after we won that one and said, all right, man, here we go. Obviously, we had a tough one at Perrysburg that next week. But we played, especially defensively, the next week against Perrysburg, really well.
What a lot of people don't realize is that's a 1-score game at halftime.
Yeah.
And that was one, again, same thing where we were checking the scores at halftime. We obviously do that during our halftime show. And we saw 13-7, and you sit there and you say, wow. And I think, again, like you said, that just shows that you can be really good. Like we can do this. And sometimes believing is 90% of the battle.
Absolutely. In the Perrysburg game, we gave up 14 points, 7 on special teams, 7 on our offense. And we turned the fumble for a touchdown. So our defense played really, really well. And that's probably been the biggest difference this year is our defense, especially against the run, is so much better this year than it has been the last couple of years. And our kids are starting to believe. They're believing. It's really exciting with that side of the ball. We knew going in offensively, having 9 starters back, and obviously having the quarterback that we have, that we were going to be able to score some points, and we were going to, offensively, we'd be pretty good. Defensively, it has been the big turnaround.
I look at Mason, and I know we talked about him already, but it's one of those where I think that I don't know that a lot of people thought, and we kind of talked about this in week 3. I don't think a lot of people thought that he was going to be able to maybe play at Pitt, or that maybe he was going to be able to withstand that. And I'm telling you, after watching the way that he's finished the year as well, it would be hard to guess or say that maybe not next year, but I think I think he could be a really good quarterback for Pitt. I think they're getting a steal.
They are getting a steal. And, I say it all the time, I don't know what a 4-star guy looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but I know what we have. And, he just continues to make play after play after play. To me, football is about production, and he produces at the highest level. So I really think that Pittsburgh, they were in on him early, and they are getting a heck of a quarterback. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think we're going to be sitting here in 2 years, 3 years, and we're going to be talking about how good he was as a high school player. And Justin Keller, who I think you probably know, it was Whitmer's OC for a long time, and Justin does all the games with me. And this is not to put any pressure on Mason, but he said the last time he saw a quarterback do what Mason did in the game against Whitmer was Justin's related to Ben Roethlisberger, and he said that's who I would say he looked like to me in high school. So again, no pressure by any stretch for Mason, but I mean, again, that's high praise for him to make that comparison. That Cardinal division run is great, but you guys have that quirk in the schedule where week 9 is where you sew it up, and then you got to go play week 10. Was it difficult to keep the guys engaged last week? I know obviously the competition was maybe not what you faced the most recent weeks, but how did you kind of approach that game? Because that's a week where you obviously don't want to risk anything health-wise. I had said that you probably had a number in mind of once we get to this, everybody's coming out, we're putting a lot of the backups in. But how did you approach last week knowing that you had already set up a division championship? You wanted to win that game because you wanted the home game and make sure that was the case. But you also knew that you probably didn't have to play Mason and Troy and Hudson and all those guys 48 minutes to win.
Yeah, and really, I mean, we approached it as far as, hey, it's our senior night. We definitely want to send our seniors out on the right note as far as their last regular season game, and then also the playoff, the home playoff game. That has been a big motivating factor for us because that was goal number 2 this year. It's like we want to host a playoff game, and so in order for us to do that, we got to take care of our business. Which we did. I mean, and it was a little tough. I mean, focus at practice last week was not the greatest.
Sure.
And at times in the game, it certainly showed on Friday night a little bit, especially on defense, which was really disappointing. But this week our focus has been really good. So I think we're kind of back on track.
Another schedule quirk, you guys are one of the few players or teams that actually plays a team that you've faced already this season. It doesn't happen a ton, but you guys get Sandusky again this week, 38-21. You won that in week 1. Clearly, Sandusky is not the same team that they were in week 1, but you guys aren't either. So you come into this game, is the approach where you just kind of approach it like a fresh week where we're just starting like we're starting from scratch? Or are you kind of taking some of the stuff that you did in week 1 and trying just to maybe modify and build off of it so that you don't give the exact same look to Sandusky?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you look at their last 3 games and then, you look at game 1. I mean, the biggest change is they had a quarterback change. And, with the guy playing quarterback right now, who we saw last year, they're 6-1. So, that gets your attention right away. So they are definitely a different team. They're a better team, obviously. But I also think, we're a little bit different too. And we think we're better, obviously, too. Mm-hmm. So, it's been, hey, it's playoff time. Everybody's 0-0 and, it's survive in advance. So you got to get it done. Obviously, we're really happy we're playing at home.
Sure.
This year versus last couple of years where we've had to travel east a couple hours. So it's nice that somebody's coming to us.
Is it a situation at all where you're concerned about making sure that the kids understand that things don't always play out the same way? I mean, Whitmer is my best example from last year, beat Perrysburg in week 6, then faced them in the first round of the playoffs, and Perrysburg brought it to Whitmer. So are you trying to impress upon these guys to understand, hey, listen, just because the first game was a 17-point win for us, don't expect that that's going to be the case on Friday?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it goes back to everybody is 0-0. And, they're feeling good about themselves. You win 6 out of 7, and obviously they want to crack at us again. So they're getting it. So yeah, I mean, we got to bring our A game. That's for sure. On Friday.
Before I let you go, what are some of the keys you think for Friday for you guys being successful?
I think if we can run the ball, that just makes our offense so much better. It opens up everything for us if we can run the ball. And then we've got to contain the quarterback. He can hurt you with his legs. That's kind of how he hurt us last year. So that's a big challenge for us. We turned the ball over against them in week 1. From an offensive standpoint, I think we had, I want to say 4 turnovers.
Okay.
That's very uncharacteristic for us this year. So we definitely need to hang on to the football. And if we can do that, I mean, we think, we got a chance.
Well, I wish you the best of luck on Friday. I'm looking forward to seeing how everything shakes out. Again, congratulations. I know I've talked to you before about this, but just love you guys having success, and hopefully you get some kind of discount on your dental work for winning a championship.
Yeah, we have to talk to my dentist about that.
Good luck, John. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
That was John Gallius, the head football coach, the Cardinal Division champion Clay Eagles for the 2024 season. And since we did the Cardinal Division champ, we might as well bring in the Buckeye Division champion head coach as well, and that is Andy Brungard, who 4th place, man. I think they got that one wrong a little bit to start the season, Andy.
Yeah, that's okay though. We got it corrected.
Well, you said that your guys use that as motivation, and I talked about this even last week when we were seeing the final score of the game against Perrysburg, and I remember thinking as we went along, it just kind of kept ringing in my head that you said that the kids noticed that, and not that that's what you want to be the ultimate motivator, but I feel like those kids, and I said to you at the time, I thought it was kind of crazy that you were 4th, but I think the kids took it personally. And sometimes that's all you really need is to have that chip on your shoulder, which is what I think your guys played with all year.
I mean, I would argue too, going into the Whitmer game, our biggest, argument to our kids was that we need to be the best team. Mm-hmm. And I think what got lost in that is we also have a lot of talented kids. And when our leaders and our kids who are talented also play with that edge and that chip, like Grant and Braden Gardner and go down the line, Owen Palmer's, and, that creates a good mix of energy. And our kids fed off of that all season long.
Now, I know your sleeping accommodations on Friday are always maybe not the most comfortable, but you're probably the happiest guy I know that camps out in a tent on the football field after a win over Perrysburg. Just real quick, what goes into that tradition? Because that started a few years ago and you've carried it over. So every time you beat Perrysburg, regardless of home or away, you pitch a tent on the field at Schaller Stadium and stay the night out there. How did that tradition start?
Well, I have asked for a new tradition and the players are refusing to give it to me. So I'm hoping at some point, I feel like I'm getting to the age, at least let me sleep in the locker room. It would be nice. In 2016, I had left being the defensive coordinator at Perrysburg and came over to Anthony Wayne. And as I said in the paper, as a demonstration of loyalty, I told the kids I'd sleep in White House, and they said, "Will you sleep on the field in a tent?" So I said, "If you beat Perrysburg, I'll be an Anthony Wayne resident for the night." I figured moving to Anthony Wayne would be good enough now that I live in Waterville, but the tradition continues, and that's just something fun to add to rivalry and something that I enjoy doing if it gets the kids a little edge just to win a game. So,
well, the cannon is outside to protect from wild animals, so there's a lot of that goes into the setup. So, I look at this team. I mentioned we talked about the chip on the shoulder, but I thought even in maybe situations where people didn't take you seriously or didn't think that you guys, and I'm guilty of it, maybe counted you guys out or maybe not as good as others. Were you always quietly confident about this group, knowing what they had in the tank and knowing how good they were?
I think we returned Owen Palmer at center. We returned Braden Cole at tackle. Aiden Lohmeyer hadn't finished a season. He was a starter as a sophomore. And I think quietly other teams didn't necessarily know that he was there. And in my mind, I know we lost all of our skilled players, but we returned 3 offensive linemen. We returned 2 tight ends, and we returned arguably the best quarterback and running back in the league. So to me, I feel like when you start a year and you can establish your run game, you can rely on those guys. And I really think it showed week 10. We felt like as a staff, if we could bring our skilled guys along, we know it might be rough early on with our skilled guys, but allow them to grow, allow them to get experience in games. By the time we get to the end of the year, we felt like we could be seasoned. And when you have Grant and Braden Gardner with 4 or 5 major blockers returning in front of them, I feel like running the ball equals success. And as soon as we could add some explosive plays, our skill guys over the top, it really turned into something fun.
Well, and it showed last week because you guys went to the air against Perrysburg a little bit more, and that clearly caught them off guard. That wasn't something that you had showed a ton this year, but that also now demonstrates moving forward into the playoffs to your guys, but also to opposing teams. That's one area that you're going to have to prepare for.
Well, I think it creates balance on our offense. I'll still tip my cap to Whitmer. We felt like their secondary was very talented, and we didn't feel like we were going to win the game trying to, go mano a mano with their secondary. So it kind of showcases what Grant and even our offense can do, where Grant and Braden each rush for 200 and 100 yards, and then we play Finley and Grant throws for 200 yards and Braden rushes for over 100 yards. So it creates such a balance that week to week we can try and match up with teams.
When you look at the gauntlet that the Buckeye presents, I know we talked about this earlier in the year, but your guys' season a little bit, obviously if Finley is Finley, it's a little different, but the way that your season ended up, you were a little bit more spread out of not having to play Whitmer and Perrysburg back to back. But even still, I think with the way your schedule played out, you played some of the better teams in the Cardinal division this year. We already talked with Sean Kiss. Obviously, they were 6-4. Napoleon definitely played well in the first half against you guys. This was one of those schedules that I think quietly also prepared you as you kind of ramped up through the season. Like the competition got stiffer a little bit every week. Obviously, nothing against Northview and Springfield. Those obviously aren't always the easiest back-to-back to keep guys engaged. But to have that gradual growth of skill and how tough each opponent is, that also kind of keeps that ramp up and peaking at the right time going into the playoffs, I imagine.
I think the other unique thing about our schedule is we played Hilliard Darby, who's a triple option team. We played St. John's, who's a 12 personnel team. We played Bowling Green, who just loves to run power and ISO. And, then you go, it was just a great mix of offenses and defenses throughout the year. But by the time we got done with Finley, actually, I feel like I looked at our guys on defense. I'm like, we've seen everything. Even whether we're playing Perrysburg or going to the playoffs, there's not much another team can give us that we haven't seen. And then you throw in the talent. You have Power 5 offensive linemen. You have, Power 5 DBs and receivers and quarterbacks, and our league. And then even from the Cardinal division just provides such a great example of the versatility that's there, but from the athletes and from the different things you see schematically.
When I look at this way that your Region 6 shook out, it's kind of crazy to just think how good the region is, because you guys had to win to get that 3 seed in order to guarantee the 2 home playoff games, or at least that was the way it was projected going into last week. That region is going to be really tough, especially at the upper echelon of that region. But I look at the way that the season played out, that just tells you that this Region 6 is going to be a gauntlet if you guys want to come out as regional champions.
I think last week, before Wadsworth lost, there were 4 9-0 teams, and all 4 were ranked in the top 8 in the state of Ohio. So, we were even talking as a staff, half of this region is state ranked.
Yeah.
The guys just outside of the region, like a Clay, just outside of being state ranked, Avon Lake, St. Francis. We feel like 1 through 15. Even with Fremont Ross getting the 15th seed and having to play Medina Highland, this is a really tough region. And I think our kids, like I said, we're fortunate because I've said it many times. They love the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking past anybody. And, you look at a win this week and we've got Clay. So
yeah,
it just creates a lot of excitement.
Got Cleveland Rhodes coming to you guys this Friday night. I know that you're always excited to play at home, but before we get into Rhodes specifically, how critical was it to you to have not just the 1, but the 2 home games and not have to travel those first 2 weeks in theory?
It's funny. I was talking to a cheerleader this morning and she's like, we have 2 home games in a row. She's like, that's really fun to be home 2 weeks in a row. And for us, it's 3 weeks in a row because we get Perrysburg, Cleveland Rhodes, and then the winner of Clay and Sandusky. And to go on a stretch at home for 3 weeks it's truly a big advantage to not have to travel. You're practicing basically at this point on your home field every week.
Mhm.
So to have basically 3 weeks, you don't have to travel for a month. That's a huge advantage in the playoffs for your kids. Kind of takes a little bit of the wear and tear off, and not having to get on and off a bus for an hour, or even some teams are traveling 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
People don't realize you get home at midnight and you got to get up and go back to work. That makes a big difference.
Cleveland Rhodes is a team that you guys have played in the past. I know it's not the same head coach, but what have you seen from them on film? It's an inner city Cleveland school. They play largely Cleveland public schools. What have you seen from them on tape?
They've got 2 good receivers out on the perimeter. They like to throw fade a lot of seam passes. Their quarterback was a conference player of the year. If something goes wrong, he does a really good job of making something happen. Their defense, they play an odd front. They play a 3-4. So they like to play man. They like to pressure. They'll send at least 1 or 2 blitzes every time. And it's one of those defenses where they might guess right on one play, but you hope you get them on the next. So there are some things that provide some challenges that our kids need to be ready for. But, it's going to be an environment at our place that we're excited about.
Is it completely different than what you saw a few years ago? Obviously, no team is the same, or do they do some similar things to what they did a few years ago?
A few years ago, they were spread empty and they ran what was called the spinner wing tee, where you weren't supposed to be able to know where the ball was going. Now they're more of a traditional 1 tight end power spread set. So it's very similar to what you'd see from a Perrysburg or a Whitmer, and something that you traditionally defend.
And what a horrible night to try and run that offense at your guys' place that year, because it was a mud fest, if memory serves, in that first round game against Cleveland Rhodes a few years ago, because we had all that rain. At least in theory, this week won't hopefully be as sloppy, since it's supposed to be nice through the rest of the week. But man, that had to have been tough to run that offense
it was
on
tough
the
to
field
run any
conditions.
offense.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I think that year our field flooded 3 times.
Yeah.
Never have I ever seen somebody shot back a sideline, and we had to do that to get the game off that year. So it'll be a much nicer night in Schaller Stadium.
Before I let you go, some of the keys that you feel like to Friday in order to be successful, and what you kind of have to do to come away with a victory.
Defensively, we have to get stops. I feel like one thing we've done well in defense is stopping teams on 3rd and 4th down. We have to continue to do that. The game's all about momentum, and if you can prevent the other team from having it, that's your advantage. The other thing is explosive plays. That's been a point of emphasis with our offense. The quicker we can score and the quicker we can, get guys more than 15 yards downfield, the higher percentages that we are going to score that drive. And then finally, whether it's wet or it's dry or it's sunny or it's windy, playoff football is about taking care of the ball.
Yep.
You've got to limit turnovers. So if we can create turnovers, that's a big point of emphasis for our defense moving forward, is taking the ball away, and then obviously limiting on our end.
Well, I appreciate it. Honestly, congratulations. I know that a lot of people, like I said, myself included, didn't always think that you guys were going to be able to get it done. And I think you proved, not just myself, but a lot of people wrong, that you guys are more than capable. And I think the sky's the limit for this group. And I imagine you probably feel the same. If you guys play the way that you've played, man, it could be a really fun rest of the month of November out in White House.
Yeah, I've been through it, and I think it's a challenge for any team at this point, is how healthy can you stay as the weeks go on. So hopefully we can stay healthy.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Andy. Thanks so much. Hopefully to talk to you again next week.
Yep. Thanks, Chris.
That was Andy Brungard, the head football coach for the Anthony Wayne Generals, the Buckeye Division Anthony Wayne champion Generals there for the 2024 season. Really appreciate Andy Brungard and his time. Before we get to Ken Winters, want to say thank you to our friends over at Victory Auto Mall. Victory Auto Mall is the place that you want to go if you're going to take a trusted car dealer in Toledo, whether you're shopping for your first car or your 10th truck. Their staff provides an outstanding service in a no-pressure environment. Their only goal to find you a great vehicle that matches your lifestyle and services you well for years to come. Victory Auto Mall has an established exemplary reputation in the community, and they are a buy here, pay here dealership. Top priority, helping you get the vehicle that you want. You can call them 419-345-3603. Visit them in person, 1632 West Lasky Road. And then, of course, you can look at them online, WeFinanceCarsToday.com. Make sure you ask for Steve when you go in. He's the guy that you want to talk to over at Victory Automall. So make sure you visit our friends over at Victory Automall. Thanks to them. And also one final thank you to our friends over at Sidelines Sports Eatery. Sidelines has been our Player of the Week sponsor for Whitmer football games this year. They were our Player of the Week sponsor last year for the NLL as well. So we appreciate them, Eric Sitter and his group. Make sure you make them your place for the college and pro games this weekend. Delicious food, great drinks. Visit any one of their 7 convenient locations today, or you can look them up, sidelinesportseatery.com online. As I said, 7 different places that you can go, enjoy a beer, have some wings, and watch some football this weekend. So really excited to partner with them and Eric Sitter and his group. So let's go ahead and bring in Ken Winters, the head football coach of the Whitmer Panthers. Looks like we may not have a camera on Ken. Ken, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We don't see you, but that's okay. This is better.
I'm a tech guru here, and, I'm not sure why this is a new computer for me. So I'm not sure why it's not.
No worries. This is already off to a better start than what it was the first time we talked to you. So
my face is made for radio anyway.
So I wanted to have you on because clearly we talk every week, and I know a lot of people had counted this program out after what happened back in week 5 against Anthony Wayne. I know that night did not go the way that you wanted to, and a lot of people in the or outside the program, around the program, probably wondered what was this 2024 Whitmer team made of. And the next week you go out and you probably have your most complete and dominant performance of the entire season from start to finish, 27-13 over Perrysburg. What was the approach that weekend between that Anthony Wayne game and Perrysburg, and what were you guys able to do that week that kind of shifted the momentum back into your favor?
It was just being honest with ourselves, coming in Saturday morning. My thing, it was a long night. I didn't sleep much. And the biggest thing or the first thing that I thought is we have to own this. Like I said, whatever, it was a lot of different things that happened that night. But at the end of the day, we put it out there and we got beat and we had to make sure that we owned it and some of the reasons why we got beat. So we had a pretty long talk, before we watched film, and then we watched film and we owned it. And then we just talked about what we needed to do this next week to turn our season around, because at that point we still had all of our goals.
Sure.
Obviously last year, we shared it two different ways, or three teams shared it. So, we knew if we just kept keeping our business, at the end of the day, we'd have a chance, and that's all we had. So, and we knew, just winning every week would increase our playoff seeding. So we kind of went from there, and the week of practice was hard. It was very physical. I don't like to go ones versus ones, especially that late in the year, but we did almost every period that way because we had lost some of our physicality, and it was kind of got lost where you're winning games and it ggets overlooked because you're winning. And if you go back and you look at practice tape and you look at the games leading up to it, and I'm sure Andy and Anthony Wayne saw it, our defensively we weren't attacking, we were sitting back, we were catching, and we were getting away with it because of who we were playing. And when you play a good team, you can't do that. And then, obviously not having, Napoleon that game didn't help either. But we worked through the week, and Napoleon came back, and then we've rolled ever since then.
You moved Napoleon to a middle linebacker in between that week against Anthony Wayne and then into Perrysburg, and you moved Demekus Beach, who was the middle linebacker, to defensive end. And it was almost like it was a completely different defense than the one we saw the week before. Clearly, the motivational side of things you throw into the conversation, but what schematically did that do for you guys to be able to move Napoleon to that middle linebacker spot and then move Demekus off to that edge spot? What did that do for the defense?
I think it just showed us up on the D-line. We were a little bit light on the D-line, and Demekus coming over from Scott. Just learn our defense, and Napoleon is very versatile. He can play anywhere, and it was just a better fit for Beach to move more to DN and Napoleon to be our middle backer, because we struggled a little bit, stopping the run, and just as we looked at personnel, we just felt that was a better fit for Demetrius and Napoleon, switching them to.
And we found out last weekend that Demetrius is also a pretty good running back as well.
Yeah, 1 carry, 25 yards and a touchdown. No, we've been so. I mean, he came in and he wants to play both, obviously, and we don't do a lot of that at our place, and we needed him more defensively than offensively. We tinkered around with it in 2 days, and then he was just mostly defense, and because we had Joey and Jaden, and then Jamon Holmes comes on the scene, and you got 3 running backs, and 2's nice to have, 3 is actually too many, and 4 is too much of a crowd. So he just stuck to defense, and then Jamon got hurt, and then Joey started getting banged up a little bit, and 2 weeks ago we go, Demetrius is going to start running the ball again, and there's actually, I think Tyler Bitts made the comment that we should probably start repping him, and we did, and he does have really good vision, and he's got good feet for a big guy, and so we tried to get him a carry in the Finley game, and it just didn't work out, and so I was on the headsets on Friday. I go, we're going to beat you in this series. And so we get him in, and, of course, Gooch passes, 3 times, and Demetrius don't get a carry. So the next time we get the ball, I go, we got to give him a carry. They give it to him the first time, and he scores. And it was pretty nice to see for him, and I was pretty happy for him.
Well, I know myself, Jutt, and Dan were playing which 90s running back did he most resemble? Was it Ron Dane? Was it Natron Means, Barry Foster? Like, you can throw a lot of names out there. He was more of an old school looking back, and the advantage I think he gives you as well, not that Jaden doesn't block well in pass pro. I know you've said to me in the past that Jaden's your best blocker in pass pro, but to have Demetrius be able to do that as well, I'd imagine he's going to be somebody that, assuming you guys make a run in the playoffs, that you could probably see rep there more just in passing situations because of the big body he is, especially against some of those more stout teams defensively.
Yeah, I mean, he's an option. He's been working on it. It's not as easy. It's easier said than done. He needs to rep it out. We have been doing that. And like I said, it gives us a different option. Jamon does come back this week.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much we'll use him in the playoffs, but at least we have that option to go to him, and we get into a 4th and 1, and on the 1 yard line, he's definitely an option there because of the load he is.
When we talked last week, a lot of the prognostications that we did about what seed you were going to be and where you were going to end up, most people did not think that this team was going to rise all the way to the 2 seed, but I do think it speaks to how difficult the schedule was. I think it speaks to just how good you guys were during the regular season. Your 2 losses were to 2 teams that clearly were really good, 9-1 and 10-0. So you had 2 losses to teams that are 19-1 on the year. This team really, I think a lot of people would look at it because there wasn't a conference championship or a division championship involved that may have considered that a failure. But I know one of the goals is to get to the 2 home playoff game mark, and to get to that 2 seed, like I said, just speaks to, even though maybe some of the games didn't go your way as you would have liked, it still speaks to how successful of a season you are to get that high in this region, knowing how many good teams there are.
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously we're disappointed that we didn't, win the league, but I think if hopefully when you go back on this season, you look at an Anthony Wayne game and said, you know what, even though we lost the league, it really helped us. It turned our season around and let us do a good run in the playoffs. So, as soon as we found out that, Anthony Wayne was taking care of business on Friday, really our attention turns to, the playoffs and making a run. And, one of the things I did on Monday, or when they came in on Monday, because we didn't bring them in over the weekend, I put the brackets up, and it's funny how it's way different, like from when we were in high school and in sports. I think, we knew every stat, and we knew the bracket, we knew the schedule, and it's funny because these kids don't, and it's funny when I put that bracket up, how much they've never really seen that, or most of our kids have not even seen it. And so, I just put it up there, and we just kind of looked at it and talked about our 5-game journey that we're about ready to, embark on, and some of the games that are out there and possibilities and what it would take to play in those bigger games and to navigate through this 5-game tournament. And it was a really good discussion, and the kids were really pumped after we were done, and then we went out and had great practice. So, we're excited. The opportunity to have 2 home games, the opportunity, some of the games in the future, if we can get through this one on Friday, we're excited for the journey that's in front of us.
I talked with the John Marshall head coach, Terrence Claggett, really excited to come into Whitmer Memorial Stadium on Friday. What have you seen from John Marshall on film? I know it's an inner city Cleveland school, 2-8. People are going to look at the record and say, oh, they're not very good. But what have you seen from them? I imagine in order to be here, you still have to have some athletes on the team.
No, they remind me of a Lima team. They have athletes all over. If there's any team that I would compare them to, that's who we played before is really a Lima. The quarterback's athletic. They have athletic receivers. They got a huge tailback, and they kind of move him around. But yeah, I mean, if you don't take them serious and take them lightly, and you're not on your game, then they can definitely score some points on you. So, obviously we got to be focused on them and focus on the task at hand on Friday.
I know when we've talked in the past, this is one area that you've really hammered with your group, which is being focused and being locked in, not just on Friday, but understanding that you got to be locked in the whole week. You got to take it seriously the whole week. And this is a group, to me, in a lot of different years, we might say, well, you're weak at this spot, or man, I wish we had one more linebacker, or whatever the case may be. But the hiccup, or maybe the Achilles heel for this group that we've talked about on Fridays, has been the fact that this group sometimes loses its focus, and this would be the wrong week, and certainly over the next coming weeks to lose focus. They have to be, and I'm sure you've impressed this upon them, they have to be locked in every week, because it gets harder and harder to get to the ultimate game, and you can't do that if you're not focused.
Yeah, I mean, they're a unique group. They're a group unlike I've ever had before. Love them to death, but man, sometimes they test me. They like to have fun. They like to play around, and you got to keep on them all the time. And it's not I'm not being negative towards them. They're a fun group to be around, but just focusing all the time and knowing when to focus. But when they do, it's good. So it's just about, me, not just me, but all my assistant coaches, just keeping them focused, before practice, and then as we go out to practice, and then after practice, they can have their fun. And we've done a much better job over the last 4 weeks of doing that. And I've seen a focus group. We had a really good practice on Monday. Tuesday, yesterday was a little bit hot. We were a little bit lethargic. Got after them today and had a really good practice today. So I think we'll be all right. But the more focused we can get them and keep them. This team, like you said, has a lot of talent. It's one of the most talented teams I've had. But they just got to do the right things all the time.
Is that that Perrysburg game one that you can point back to and say, look at what happens when we are locked in, when we are focused? And it shouldn't take, and I'm sure you feel this way, it shouldn't take us being that difficult, being that hard during the week. The problem is, the nice thing after that game against Anthony Wayne is you had another week to play. You had more games to play. This is you don't win, you don't play the next week. Is it one of those that you point to that game and say, that's what it has to be? That has to be the standard the rest of the way out?
Yeah, there's definitely reminders. We have certain reminders that we remind them of, definitely how we practiced the week of the Perrysburg game, how we did it maybe the week of the Anthony Wayne game. I think right now, like I said, our focus is on the journey.
Sure.
We know it's not about John Marshall on Friday. It's about us executing, getting better on Friday. It's us practicing every practice to beat a St. Ed's, to beat, a Mentor, to beat the top teams. You can't sleepwalk through a week and expect to win. And if you don't, you're right, you're going home. I reminded the seniors of how much time they put in since their sophomore year. Think of, they come in January and, 3 to 4 days a week. And then, you go into the summer and you get into mini camp and 2-a-days and just all the hours that they've put in since their sophomore year for this moment. And are you willing to, waste it away? Or are you going to really focus up and hunker down and practice the way we should? And they responded really well from doing that.
Well, and when I was talking with Dirk Connor, a lot of what I said too is you don't know. You've been through this before. I've been through this before. When the season ends, whether it ends on a win or a loss, doesn't matter. That moment, the gravity of knowing that most of those guys are going to be done playing football, that moment can't be fully grasped until you actually go through it. And you can warn the kids as much as you want, but that's a feeling that you don't know what it feels like until you get there. And I'm sure you've probably let them know, or at least will let them know, that you don't want that to come too early, basically.
No, I mean, you can tell them all you want, but you're right, until they experience. It's just like, on Monday I told them how great it was to coach in the biggest game and be in the biggest game. But until they get there, they don't understand what the magnitude of that is. But you just keep telling them and you keep preaching and you keep teaching them. That's what we're there for. And, when it comes, it comes. And you just know that you've done the best to prepare them for that moment.
Before I let you go, some of the keys that you think are important on Friday in order to be successful against John Marshall.
We can't throw the football. Offensively, just keep the balance. I think we've done a really good job of balancing between the run and the pass. We need to keep that up. Brady's done a great job of knowing the situation, knowing the situation or the score of the game and not taking those risks. And, we need to continue to do that. Defensively, just continue to play downhill, fast and physical. Obviously special teams done a good job of this year of making plays on special teams. So just got to play a complete game and, not give them any momentum. They're big, capable of big plays, and we can't let that happen. And, I think if we do those things, we'll be fine.
Well, I appreciate the time, my friend. You know how I feel about you and all that you do for me. So thanks for doing this. I know I gave you the late slot because I knew you would be up for it and would be good for it. So I appreciate you doing this and look forward to talking with you more as the week goes on.
Absolutely. Appreciate everything you do for us.
That was the voice of Whitmer head coach Ken Winters here on NLL Weekly. And as Dan has up on the board right now, we will be at Whitmer Memorial Stadium versus Cleveland. John Marshall, the 15 seed, taking on Whitmer, the 2 seed. The Cars Stereo 1 Panther tailgate kicks off at 6:30, then kickoff at 7 o'clock live on Q1055 here in Toledo from Whitmer Memorial Stadium. Pretty successful. We did a nice job with getting through there, and I had 8:50 is where I was targeting to be done with the interviews at, and we got there pretty much.
Cool. And what a rush to get through all that too. Not that rushed as in we had to hurry up and get through and they weren't able to kind of really get into a conversation, just a rush to be able to say, hey, we were able to get everybody in and actually I just pull it off. And that's a credit to you and the job you did the last couple of days to kind of corral these coaches on as we go all the way back to the start and see that it's not always an easy night to corral coaches on a Wednesday.
Well, I will say we talked about this during our broadcast last week, and I really would say that, and I know Justin Keller agreed, I know you agree. We talked several times about how great it is to talk to all these guys. We've had good conversations with everyone, and sorry to not have Tyler Swery. He had another engagement. He was going to do it, just wasn't able to make it work. And so we almost would have had all 8 of the playoff coaches that are available. And to have all of those conversations, and even with LaCharles and Greg Silm and Steve Hardy, the teams that didn't make it, every one of them was fantastic to talk to spend time with this year. And it was really a testament to just the kind of guys that are head coaches in this league. You don't always get that lucky with quality individuals at every school. And I know that's what makes this league so special. Yeah, we obviously have a partnership and all that stuff, but those guys don't owe me anything, just like I don't owe them anything. And yet we still understand that the best opportunity is for the kids and also drawing attention to those things. So I always appreciate them, and also appreciate you, my man. I mean, you've been with me every step of the way, and this has been fun. And I know we're not ready for it to be over with yet at any stretch, at least as far as football is concerned. But all the games this week, again, we already talked about Whitmer and Cleveland John Marshall. Harrisburg taking on Medina on Friday. Finley's at Lakewood St. Ed's. In Division II, Anthony Wayne taking on Cleveland Rhodes. Clay and Sandusky, that might set up the Anthony Wayne Clay game in week number 2. That would be a juicy game in the playoffs if we were able to see that. And then Fremont Ross at Medina Highland. And then we also talked about Bowling Green there at Defiance. And then in Division 4, Napoleon's on the road at Lorraine Clearview. They're the 13th seed. Lorraine Clearview is the 4 seed. They're 8-2. Napoleon finishes 5-5. So all of those teams, all 8 of those coaches, thank you so much for doing this tonight. Thank you for being the stewards that you are to the league, to myself, to your kids, whatever that is to you. I just appreciate it all. So again, I know that I speak for Dan, I speak for everybody for you guys doing that. So thank you again. Before we get out of here, want to let you know that we will have a show again next week. So make sure you stay tuned. I'm not 100% sure what we're doing. We might talk with the coaches again. They might be a little sick of me, but we're also going to try and do some different stuff, kind of get the state of where the playoffs are at that point, because once we get through that first round, some of those interesting matchups. Ken Winters talked about Lakewood St. Ed's. They're obviously playing Finley. As I said to Stephen Adams, would love to see them at Whitmer Memorial come week 2 of the playoffs. So we'll see if that comes to pass. But a lot of interesting teams could be making their way to Northwest Ohio in the coming weeks, and I'm excited about that as well. So we'll dive more into that next week. Before we do leave, if you didn't catch this taping live, you can listen to us each and every week on wherever you get your podcast: Spotify, iHeart, Apple, Pandora, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Spreaker, and Podcast Addict. Dan will post that by tomorrow morning, so make sure you check it out there. We always try and give you as much as we can to preview all of the games each and every week, and we did a round robin tonight again with 7 of the 8 coaches. So grateful for them for doing that, and as it seemed like they were appreciative too, which was nice, because it's not always easy to coordinate that, but I appreciate them all doing that tonight. So again, make sure you listen to it back. It's your last chance to hear from them before Friday, so make sure you check that out again wherever you get your podcast. Or of course, you can check us out NLL Weekly on YouTube. We tape roughly at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. We try and go live on YouTube, so you can check us out there. And also it's archived immediately after, so you can watch the show as well. So any of those places, a good place to get the NLL Weekly podcast. So before we get out of here, do have to thank all the coaches who joined tonight: Chad Long, Ken Winters, Sean Kiss, John Gallius, Andy Brungard, Dirk Connor, Stephen Adams, and I think I got them all. And then also Tyler Swear, even though he wasn't able to join, thanks for at least trying to make it work. I know that, again, not the way he wanted to go, but all those guys, thanks so much for giving up part of your time. As Dan said, Wednesday night, especially at almost 9 o'clock when you're a teacher, not always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes you want to be in bed already at this point. So thanks to those guys for doing that. Thanks to you for listening at home. We will see you in week number 2 of the playoffs. Can't believe we're already in the postseason. It's going to be a fun one. So we'll see you next Wednesday night. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.